I didn't go to any Patriots games, but yeah,
well,
Red
that's
Sox.
Good. That's good because then we would have hung up on you. But,
Yeah.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 49 of the Exploring Washington State podcast. Glad that you're here. This episode is a conversation I had recently with Shelby Campbell. Shelby is the owner of Heirloom Apparel and Design in Leavenworth, Washington. This conversation talks about her art, how she got started, what she's doing with her art business these days. We talk about Leavenworth. We talk about North Central Washington. It's another one of those great conversations that I get to have with people who are doing interesting things in Washington State. But before I let you hear what Shelby has to say, I need you to subscribe. So, hey, whatever podcast player you're listening to, smash that subscribe button. Go ahead and give us a rating on iTunes. Share it with your friends. Do all those things. You can help us out. We appreciate that. Also, if you've got any suggestions for guests that we should have on the podcast, you can reach me at podcast@explorewashingtonstate.com. Send me an email. Give me some suggestions. Looking forward to any feedback you might have that you can share with us via email. Well, let's get started. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks.
Well, to get started, why don't you give our audience the basic overview of how did you get started in art, and we'll work our way from there.
Oh man. Okay. I was really encouraged to start making art in high school by a high school art teacher. And I actually did Running Start, which helped my art career a ton because I was suddenly doing art at a college level when I was like 16, figure drawing and learning about illustration and all that good stuff. I had a lot of really encouraging professors and teachers, and I ran with it. I really loved it. I couldn't stop painting and drawing, even though I was so bad at it. But I actually, really wanted to use art as a way to leave my hometown and start exploring the world. And I was able to do that when I went to art school in Boston. And that's really how I got started. I found illustration and fell in love with illustrating.
So let's pause that for a second. Let's go back just a little bit. So The hometown was Kashmere.
Yes, my hometown.
So you went to Kashmere High School?
I did. Yep.
Okay. And Running Start was that at Wenatchee Valley Community College?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. All right. So there we've got that. So Wenatchee Valley Community College is down the street from where I am sitting right now. So
nice. Yeah, it's a great spot. I met a lot of really cool people there. So
okay. So then after high school and / Running Start,
yes,
you went to.
I went to the Art Institute of Boston at Lesley University, and so the campus is actually in Cambridge and in Boston. So I was living in Little Italy at the time, which is the north end of Boston. It was a pretty awesome experience that really shaped me a lot, actually.
Why do you say that? What about it was impactful?
So basically, the minute I graduated from high school, I went to Europe for a month, came back. I had about 3 weeks to pack my bags in my entire life and then move across country pretty much on my own. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, was also going to school there, kind of by chance, actually. So moving across the country made me become very independent very quickly. I had a job. I was in school full time, and I learned a lot about myself. It was great. And definitely being from Kashmere and then moving to a big city was a huge change too, but a good one.
So I know nothing about the art world. And what I mean by that is I know nothing about the art world. But specifically, like, where's good schools? So why did you pick going to Boston? I could tease you and say, because it's a long ways away from Kashmere.
Yes, the farthest possible. Okay. Yeah.
Well, maybe you would have gone to Miami. Miami's a little further. Warmer too.
I definitely looked at schools in other spots. I actually got accepted to Cornish, which is in Seattle, and some other schools. And then it came right down to going to the Art Institute of Boston at Lesley University or Cornish. And after so basically, when you're applying to art schools, there's this thing called Portfolio Day, and you can bring your portfolio, meet up with representatives at art schools. And I randomly ended up at the table for the Art Institute of Boston. And it happened to be the head of the illustration department who was there looking over portfolios, and she was amazing and really encouraged me to apply. And she actually was like, "Can I see your sketchbook?" Which for me that's a very private, it's kind of like someone saying, "Can I look in your diary?" But I was like, "Hey, why not?" So I showed her, and she was like, "Please apply. I think this is a great program for you." And Cornish, unfortunately, didn't have an illustration department, and I was really stuck on that. And so that made the decision for me pretty easy when I was like accepted into the illustration department, and why not? When else am I going to move to Boston on a whim? So
because these are important questions, did you become a Patriots fan, Red Sox fan? Because the wrong answer in this interview is over. But,
yeah, exactly.
No, in all seriousness, because I'm a baseball nut and I've not been to Fenway. Did you get a chance? Did you go to Fenway?
I did. Yeah, you'll love this. Actually, most of my classes were in this building that looks over Fenway Park. So if you were on the top level, you were looking into the stadium, which was so cool. So I was at Fenway a lot, and I went to, I think, 2 games, and one of them happened to be a Mariners and Red Sox game, which was really cool. But yeah, it's so awesome. I loved Fenway. I didn't go to any Patriots games, but yeah, Red Sox.
That's good because then we would have hung up on you. But but no, Fenway is this icon, and it's just
it is a cool
baseball.
experience.
It's very cool. So
yeah, for sure.
So how long? I'm confused. Well, I'm not confused. I just don't know. You did Running Start. So how long were you in Boston?
I was there for 3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Like 2.5. Yeah, I had just a few extra credits I had to kind of get to graduate. So it was 2.5 but yeah, so it was pretty great.
So what did you do after graduation? Did you come right back here? Or did you?
I did. Okay. Yeah. By that time I was pretty homesick. I wanted to get out of Washington so bad, and then all I wanted to do was come back. But my husband and I actually took a cross-country road trip back, which was amazing. We got to hit a bunch of national parks, the Badlands and Niagara Falls, and so we packed up our Penske van, loaded up all of our stuff with our friends, and then took about a week and a half to kind of leisurely get back home and enjoy that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So when you got back here to Washington, did you go into business for yourself right away, or did you work for somebody, or so? How did Heirloom get started? So
Heirloom wasn't started until 2017, actually. So I had quite a stretch of not working for myself. I worked at Victoria's Secret actually when I was in Boston, and so that was a good kind of stepping off or jumping off point to be able to get a job when I got back. But I actually worked for my dad for a little while, and that was a good way for me to figure out I didn't want to go into the family business, but I learned a ton. So that was really important. And then I actually started working at this boutique in Leavenworth, which was a huge part of my life. I worked there for, a little over 5 or 6 years. And I made some really great friendships from that experience. I learned a ton. And it was a really great way for me to express myself too, because I learned a lot about display and marketing and retail and wholesale. And it was actually one of my favorite jobs. So that was a good transition point for me to work for myself. So
okay. Just out of curiosity, what is the family business? Oh,
my dad owns an equipment finance company. Okay. And so I was actually a credit assistant. So I have to pull people's credit and put together credit
numbers
packages.
All day long.
Yeah, exactly. Not my ideal job. So
go to art school to look at numbers all day long.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't quite match, does it?
It didn't, but I put in my time. I think that's important.
Well, it does give you a different perspective.
Yeah, and I was, I was showing at local galleries and painting a lot after work, and still trying to kind of figure out what my style was. And art school can be kind of a confusing time because so many styles and new mediums are thrown at you. And so you're just trying to figure out who you are. And so once I was kind of out of that, I realized I can do anything, which is really good.
Right.
But it takes a long time to sort of carve away at what you really are and not what everybody else is or what you were taught. So,
okay. So I love asking this question of people. So we'll give it to you in relationship to art school though, because you had to do this for classes. It wasn't like by choice. But what was a medium that you had to work in that you thought would be cool, but it just not for you? Once you got like started in it, you're like, oh no, this isn't good.
Yeah. This is kind of random, but bookbinding. I took a bookbinding 3-dimensional illustration course, which, you know, it's kind of funny because it has nothing to do with what I make now, but I was so excited about it. I just thought it was just so unique. I wanted to learn how to do it so bad. And I was horrible at it. But it was a good learning experience for me. But yeah, bookbinding is hard and there's not a big market for it, to be honest.
Well, I didn't, the last time I got my Kindle book, I didn't notice that it was bound.
Yeah, there's no
actually,
saddle
that's a shame.
stitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surprisingly, another medium that I tried when I was in college was gouache. And I was so excited to try it because I knew a lot of traditional illustrators use gouache. And I was by far the worst in my class. I don't think I could have been worse at painting in gouache. And now it's what I use 98% of the time. So it was kind of a challenge for me because I was that bad to keep chipping away at it. And surprisingly, I thought, you know, I guess I'll just keep going. But I didn't give up. So
well, what was the turning point there from you being, you know, bad.
Oh, no, I was.
Okay, well, to now you're using it as one of your major mediums. What was the turning point for you that you just decided to not throw in the towel, so to speak?
This is kind of a funny story, but it's a big part of why I'm an artist. I had a college professor that actually said, "This is horrible. I don't know how you got into art school." And I was a mess, like straight up mess. I couldn't be consoled. Looking back on it, it was bad. So I don't blame him for saying that. I should have tried harder. I should have practiced more. But the funny part about it is that has still stuck with me where, you know, it's like almost 10 years later. But that motivated me to become better because I was so angry at him and I was so hurt and upset over this criticism, because that's really what it was. It was just, you know, criticism. That's what artists have to deal with, is criticism. So it motivated me to get better and to focus on this thing that he had said I was horrible at and to kind of prove him wrong. And it benefited me in the long run. So a little tough love.
You didn't go, look at my sketchbook. Yeah. They told me they wanted me to apply because of my sketchbook.
They said
I'm
my
here
sketchbook
because you wanted
good.
me.
Yeah. You asked me to be here. Yeah. Art school is definitely, you get a little awakening. That's for sure.
I always find it really fascinating to hear people's struggles, not because I'm mean, but because I think a lot of times through that adversity comes something out of it that's amazing for most of us. You could have folded your tent up and not ever touched the medium again. Right. You instead channeled your frustration, we'll call it that, and kept working on it. And honestly, you probably are really grateful for that feedback. Historically, now you're looking at it going, I'm glad I got that. But in the moment, it sucked.
In hindsight, I'm really grateful for it. It really did shape me as much as it's horrible to say that because I don't want people to start being really rough on young artists and, you know, oh, that's the worst piece of gouache painting I've ever seen in my life. He could have gone about it in a better way, but it really encouraged me as part of just my personality. And you're right that, you know, overcoming that was a big part of it.
So for our audience that may not know that technique that you're talking about, can you elaborate?
Yeah. So gouache is actually an opaque watercolor paint. It's a lot like acrylic. it's kind of in between acrylic and watercolor. So with acrylic, basically you can't reawaken the paint. You can't add water to it, and you can't use the same color over and over again. Acrylic dries really fast. Gouache is thick. All you have to do is kind of spray it with a spray bottle, and the paint becomes alive again.
Okay.
So it's really easy to travel with. It's very saturated. It's really vibrant. That's why a lot of my paintings are really vibrant. And a lot of illustrators use it because it is so saturated. It works really well for nature illustrations and children's book illustrations. But
so if all you have to do is spray water on it,
yes.
Does that mean somebody could come up to one of your pieces, spray water on it, and start messing with it, or do you seal it?
I do seal it in the end. Right. Yeah, and yeah. So. But yes, essentially you could. That's why. Because
I could see somebody coming up going,
yeah, that'd be so bad. Yeah, literally. It was just maybe that's a good experiment, though. I'll just make a bunch of pieces, a series, and spray them down with water.
There you go. We're here to help, give you some new creative ideas.
Experimental phase.
Right. All right. So we got through the family business. You worked at a boutique in Leavenworth.
Yes.
What was the motivation to strike out on your own? What there must have been some kernel there that you said, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I think being at that boutique for a long time, I started seeing people doing these things that I really want to do. Making stickers and stationery and t-shirts. And at some point I just started asking myself, well, why aren't you doing that? You went to art school, you love small businesses and being and learning more about business and marketing. So just one random day in July, I decided to quit my job. I had zero plan, which I don't advise, but it ended up being great. It took me a lot longer to get started because I didn't have a plan. I kind of had to just dive in, and but I figured it all out slowly but surely.
What were your first products then? Since you didn't have a plan, what'd you bring to market the first time?
Stickers. Yeah. So okay. I had a handful of stickers, and I had actually printed some stickers before I left the boutique I was working at, and was like blown away by the reaction. And at the time I was posting a lot of paintings on my personal Instagram, painting while hiking and outdoors, and that was getting a lot of great feedback, and I just felt really encouraged. And so I started turning those paintings into stickers and continued to get really great feedback. And so I was set. I knew, okay, this could be something. And so yeah, it's been a lot of stickers since then. That's the majority of what Heirloom is. So
where do you get your inspiration from then for the various lines you get? Because you've got, we'll go over some of that stuff, but overall, where do you get your inspiration from?
Traveling and being outside. Those are my biggest sources of inspiration. Taking photos, hiking. I was traveling quite a bit before COVID, so that was a huge source of inspiration for me. Mm-hmm. Hiking always does it for me. I get outside and I've been in a funk and I haven't painted anything for 5 days and I'm frustrated, and then I'll, get on a trail and it'll be 15 minutes in and I have all these ideas, and I'm taking photos of wildflowers and pulling out my sketchbook and trying to remember how the landscape looks so I can, get it down as soon as I get home. And all that stuff it's amazing how a little fresh air can really inspire me. So
do you have a go-to hike? Is there something, do you have a go-to hike? Let's start with that.
Well, let's see. If I just need a quick hike around the area, it would be Saddle Rock. But my go-to hike where I'm I'm going to come out of this with a bunch of inspiration would be Sowers Mountain. So, that's one of my favorite spots to hike.
What about Saddle Rock? Why is that your go-to?
Saddle Rock is one of those, like, you're going to sweat it out. You're going to get to the top. It's, you know, you get to the top of Saddle Rock and you're like looking over the city, and it's good exercise. It's maybe not the best views in the valley, but in the springtime, it is amazing with all the wildflowers, and, you know, it's very kind of deserty, which is not, there's a lot of people which I don't prefer that part of it, but yeah, with Sour, it's a little quieter, and just unbelievably beautiful.
So if you're gonna disrespect Saddle Rock, and I'm teasing, so
yes, seriously, I kind of did after saying it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, you just disrespected it by saying it's not the best views in the valley. Put you on the spot. What do you think? Where's the best views in the Wenatchee Valley?
Oh, are we counting Leavenworth in here?
You can count. Well, no, not for this. You can't. Sorry.
Oh,
no.
Oh man.
Are you gonna back up now and not disrespect Saddle Rock?
Well, Saddle Rock has an amazing view. Yeah, I definitely can't argue with that. Let's see. If you're driving just up above East Wenatchee, and I know this isn't a hike, but that's one of my favorite drives. Like, if you're driving up above like Fancher Heights in that area, when the sun is setting and the wheat is out there, and oh my gosh, that's a pretty unparalleled view up there.
Yeah, we're lucky in this area. There's lots of great views.
Yes,
all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Saddle Rock I love Saddle Rock.
It is pretty incredible. When you get to the top and you're like, oh, I forgot how awesome it is up here.
Right.
And it's just right in town. So.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things. A lot of people have talked about it on other episodes. Is Saddle Rock? You know, people not from our area that come over here. And,
yeah.
In fact, one of our early episodes, we had Nick Zentner. Have you ever heard of this guy?
I don't think I have.
He's a geology professor at Central, and he has this show called Nick on the Rocks.
Oh, nice.
And we recorded an episode. I think we recorded it on a Saturday, and the night before he was here in Wenatchee, live streaming his hike on Saddle Rock.
Oh, nice.
And I tuned in because I didn't know much about this guy. And so one of the team said, hey, you got to get Nick on. And he agreed very easily to say, yes, I'll be on. And so I was doing some research. So I found that he was doing this live stream. He had 1,000 people watching him climb Saddle Rock.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
You know, I'm thinking like, okay, if I did this, they'd have to get an ambulance and bring me down.
Yeah, there's no way I'm talking while I'm hiking.
Yeah, I'm like, exactly. I'm like, no way. And anyway, you know, and he's up there, he's got his phone out and he's live streaming it. And there's 1,000 people watching him, and they're all commenting on how beautiful the views are. And so
my gosh.
Yeah, it was wild. So anyway,
I feel like maybe I could do that at Sage Hills, a little bit more rolling, you know, not just straight up.
Yeah, Sage Hills is a good one too.
Yep. It is, yeah.
All right, so you've been in a funk. You go for a hike. You've got some inspiration. You come back.
Yeah.
Currently, what are you working on, medium wise? What are you doing these days? So
a lot of digital illustration, which I never used to do. This is kind of new for me in the last couple of years. But yeah, a lot on my iPad with my Apple Pencil, but also still a lot of gouache and watercolor. So,
okay.
Yeah.
What is it about the iPad and the pencil? Why, from a creative standpoint, once again, I'm not artistic.
Right.
So I'm not trying to say it in a judgmental way, but why? What is it about the iPad and the pencil that is working well for you right now? What is it? Has Apple kind of dialed that in so that it's a great platform for sketching?
Yes. They have. I mean, there's no lag in the pencil at all. It's literally like you're drawing on a sketchbook. And that was really the thing that held me back before. When I was using a Wacom tablet, there was always kind of this disconnect. You know, your hand is one place and you're having to look up at your screen, and I just didn't feel connected to it at all. And really with using my iPad and the Apple Pencil, it's like you're just drawing on paper or you're painting. And so for me, it has just become a natural part of like my workflow, especially when I'm working on, you know, kind of freelance illustrations or custom pieces for businesses. I can send out this sketch. they can approve it. Instead of repainting the whole thing, I go in and edit it, change colors, give them a bunch of options. It's just much better for my business now.
So really what you're saying is you're cheating.
A tiny bit. Yeah, I'm definitely not starting over every time. But yeah, it is a lot easier. So it is really nice, but it is definitely one of those things where you already have to kind of be, artistically focused or artistically minded to be able to put out what you are envisioning. It's not one of those things. It's like, I know there's a lot of people that use the iPad and they trace photos, which in my mind, people might hate me for saying this, but that's quote unquote cheating. Just because when I was in art school, you're not tracing. You need to put in the work. So I've definitely put in the work on my iPad, and same with gouache. I was horrible in the beginning. I was horrible on the iPad too, but I've worked at it every day. So.
Mm-hmm. So you got started, you didn't have a plan, you started doing stickers. Mm-hmm. And how long did it take before you started getting some traction? Did it happen instantly for you, or let's see. How did the growth start?
Yeah, probably in the first few months. It definitely didn't happen instantly. I had to figure out how to build a website. I had to figure out who even cared about stickers. I had to figure out the whole wholesale game. And I did that kind of on my own. I know that we're kind of in a culture right now where people are constantly like, oh, how'd you do it? What'd you do? Sending DMs and emails. And I love helping with that, but I was really apprehensive about asking because I'm kind of shy. So I did really do that all on my own, but it took a while to get traction and work out the kinks. I remember my very first sale on my website didn't even go through because I didn't have it set up right. But I figured that stuff out along the way, and people have been super patient with me. And I did, like I said, I had this, a little bit of support on my personal Instagram page for what I was painting. And so people kind of followed me over to Heirloom. And then I started doing pop-up shops, which was really great because I started meeting people in person and getting great feedback from people, and just figuring out what was selling. And it's a good thing for me.
Where were you doing the pop-up? I mean, the nature of them is that you move around, but where were you doing the pop-ups at?
Mostly at Pybus. Okay. I've done them quite a few other places, but Pybus Public Market has always been really good for me. Mm-hmm. It's a cool spot.
Anything in Cashmere or Leavenworth?
So I've done a couple at Bushel and Bee Tap Room. Let's see. I have done a pop-up in Ellensburg at Gallery 1.
Oh, okay.
Let's see, we did this summer market up in Leavenworth for a few days with a friend of mine who put it together, and it was great. There were so many people and vendors and food vendors and makers, and that was really fun. So that was at Smallwood. But Pybus has been kind of a mainstay until COVID, at least. But
until COVID, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we have to address COVID all the time in these episodes right now. But
right.
So what have you experienced because of COVID? How has your business been? What sort of impact has it had? Because I'm sure it's impacted you some way, whether it's good or bad. We don't know yet, but.
Yeah, I think, at first it was really difficult because I was, I had markets planned. I was supposed to do a market with Urban Craft Uprising. That got canceled. I had all these pop-ups scheduled throughout the year that all got canceled. And so I had to really focus completely 100% online. And probably the biggest thing for me was that boutiques closed down. So my wholesale business just came to a complete stop. Mm-hmm. But then thankfully it has picked back up. Things are better than ever, honestly. So that's been really good. Oh, good. And people are online shopping because they still want to shop. They just, don't get out as much. And so that's been a blessing for me, is already having everything online. And I've always been working from home for the last 3.5 years now. So that wasn't a transition at all for me. So.
Yeah, it's been interesting talking to a lot of folks and how we've all, found our path or not. Over the last 1.5 years. I mean, geez.
Yeah, I'm definitely thankful that I got that online thing figured out, before everyone else had to figure it out at the same time. But yeah.
So you started with stickers, then so I'm on your site right now. So you've got a much more than stickers on your site right now.
Yeah.
So how did you go from just stickers to all these other things?
Yeah. So I actually took a bunch of classes to teach myself how to screen print. And then I bought a bunch of screen printing equipment, and I was really excited to start, getting my art onto clothing. And so I took those classes, invested a bunch of money into the screen printing equipment, and found a studio down at the Wenatchee World building. So I was there for about a little over a year, I think, screen printing my own t-shirts and really just figuring that whole thing out, which is it's a big process. There's a lot of parts to screen printing, but it taught me a lot, especially about transferring art into something that people can wear. So that was a pretty invaluable piece of my process.
So let me stop you and just let's I'd like to have you expand on that. What did you find? Because once again, I repeat, I know nothing. So why can't you just take a picture of a sailboat and slap it on a t-shirt? What's that disconnect? What did you have to learn?
Yeah. So with screen printing, you're really limited in colors. So, typically the most you can do is print 6 colors at a time. More people print 2 or 4. And it gets more difficult the more colors you add. So, a lot of my art at the time was all hand painted. So there's no way you can transfer a painting you made in gouache that's 52 colors into a 1-color t-shirt. So I had to refocus and start just doing 1-color drawings to start. And there's a lot of alignment issues that you run up against with screen printing, because in order for the colors to layer perfectly, you have to align them perfectly. But then I also found I do digital transfers as well, and so those can be full color. There's a lot of different processes, but screen printing definitely limits you. That's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were at the Wenatchee World. It sounds like you were.
Yes.
Okay. So what about, are you doing screen printing now?
No, I still have my equipment. So maybe someday in the future when I get my own warehouse or something. But right now all my shirts are printed here locally in Leavenworth.
Okay.
And, previously being printed up in Twisp. And so I'm not doing my own printing just because the quantities increase so much, and so much of my time needs to be devoted to designing and making art. And once I was able to kind of admit that to myself, it helped my process a lot. And I was able to say, this is not my strength. My strength is creating. And so I need to pass that part off. And so once I wasn't doing 100% of the process, then I was inspired way more. I was able to make way more art. So that was pretty great.
Okay. Before we hit record, we were kind of talking about some things.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about, you've got some stuff coming out. We'll call it spring.
Yes.
Spring collection. Would that be a fair way to call it?
Yes, definitely. Spring collection.
So what will you share about what's upcoming for you?
Yeah. So the first piece of that basically was this morning, actually, I released 6 national park stickers and 4 new state stickers, which I already have a few state stickers in my collection. But I'm really excited about this national park series. I want to make it through all of them, which is It's a big goal, but I'm excited to keep going with it. So that was this morning, but I'll be releasing new t-shirts, new art prints, and new stationery, which will be available retail and wholesale. So a lot of the businesses I work with in the Pacific Northwest, Canada, and the U.S., they will have those available in their stores too. So that'll be great.
I'm actually looking at your national park stickers right now.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Nicely
Thank
done.
you.
I like the shape.
Thank you very much.
That's a cool shape. I don't care about the other states.
Yeah. We don't need Montana, just Washington.
Yeah, we don't care about those. But so are you ultimately going to do all 50 states?
Yes, that's the goal. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's been definitely easier for me to do them kind of in batches. It's been fun to, they're a little bit different than the National Park series, as in stylistically. Is that even a word?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll call it a word.
We're calling it a word.
The style is definitely different. It's been a good focus, and it's always good for me to kind of restrict myself in a way instead of. You could just paint anything, kind of putting them in the letter forms and in the specific national park shapes has been kind of a fun exercise for me. And
so what was the inspiration for the shape of the national park stickers? Yeah,
so I wanted something that looked kind of more traditional national park, like when you go into the national park, there's that welcome to Yellowstone sign. I wanted kind of a shape that was, vintage or traditional national park, had that feel. But I didn't want it to be something I had done before. And I've done a bunch of other kind of shapes. And so I went with that same kind of gold that connects the collection, and obviously the same font. And then just kind of played around with how that national park fits into that shape.
Right. No, these are great.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are very cool.
Yeah, we've got Glacier and Rocky Mountain and Acadia coming up. I have them on the list.
Okay.
So,
right. So when do you think you'll have them all the national parks done?
Oh, that's a good question. I would hope for next year because there's a lot. There's a lot of national parks, but you never know. I mean, those first 6 I actually finished in a couple of weeks, but then the process from taking it into printing and marketing it and getting it out to my wholesale stockists, that takes a lot. So, it's always a little longer than I think it will be. So right. Hopefully 2022.
Well, yeah, because I didn't know the answer to how many national parks there are. And so I'm looking, and even Google doesn't give you the same. Yeah,
there's new ones that were just added. I don't even think I know the number.
So I ended up on nationalparks.org.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And nationalparks.org says, there was a new one added on December 10th, 2020.
Right.
So there are now 62 national parks.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel pretty safe saying 2022, I think.
Yeah, that seems reasonable, doesn't it? Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Besides stickers, what else is coming out in spring?
Yeah, so new stationery, working on expanding my card line and art prints, which are always a big hit, just because they're so versatile. And then hopefully a bunch of new t-shirts. I have lots of stuff in mind, so maybe a couple hoodies I'm looking at. So I'm just in the middle of that kind of printing, getting art to print phase right now.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
All right. So when you're not creating art, what do you like to do for fun and entertainment in Washington?
Okay. Well, my husband and I like to go camping a lot, especially in the summer. We actually restored a 57 Shasta trailer.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So we'll take that around Washington, especially like up in Winthrop in the Zama area and go out with our friends, biking and hiking. And I actually live up in the Leavenworth area, so there's already a lot to do up here.
Right.
Hitting up a brewery and having some kombucha and hanging out with my friends is, usually what I'm up to on the weekends.
So where's a camping? No, I'm not going to ask you to give away like the secret camping site, but where's a camping site that's maybe underappreciated?
Oh man, like a specific site or just an area?
Yeah. Well, we can go for an area. What's an area that you think is very cool, but maybe underappreciated?
Definitely up the Iniat Valley, like past Ardmore. I know that not a lot of people camp there, and it is insanely beautiful. There's 3 different campsites kind of all in a row, and anytime we camp up there, it's amazing. There's no cell service. You're, hanging out by the river, and it's so beautiful. There's some really good hikes and drives in that area. So definitely there.
All right. I ask everybody the same question. Are you a coffee drinker?
Coffee, too much coffee.
Okay. Well, no. First off,
never enough.
There's never enough coffee. There's never too much coffee.
Yes.
In the Leavenworth area, coffee, where do you go?
I always go to J5. But it is a toss up between, J5 and Argonaut are my favorites. They have such good coffee. But I usually end up at J5.
J5. Yeah. It's a cool spot. I mean, their maple bourbon latte. Have you ever had it? First off, I'm almost always a black coffee drinker.
Oh, okay.
So I really just normally just drink black coffee.
Okay.
And then I tend to make funny faces when the word maple is said. Yeah. And you said bourbon, so it's like, wait, the funny face for bourbon's good too.
Yeah.
So it's like, I might try that. But no, my go-to is an Americano or black coffee.
Yeah, for sure.
But maple bourbon latte, I got to say that's something I'm going to add to the must-try list.
It's very good. Yeah, it's like maple syrup that's been aged in bourbon barrels or something. But
interesting.
It's not too sweet. It's really good.
Yeah, people love maple, and I just it's okay. And I'm very anti-pumpkin. So if you would have said pumpkin spice, I would have just like dumped the call and we're done. And no, I'm just kidding.
I'm not a big pumpkin spice fan either, so I don't blame you.
But anyway, no, J5's great.
They are, yeah.
How about if you were going to go out to lunch? I always like to say lunch because that's easier. Where would you go? Where's a great place to go for lunch in the area that you think people should hear about?
I would say it would be a toss-up between, in the Leavenworth area, it would be Tumwater Bakery or Blewett Brewing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why?
Because both of their pizzas are amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blewett has such good pizza. So does Tumwater, and they have really good like avocado toast and just really good pastries and coffee too. So those are my go-tos.
All right. Good. What about if you're going into Wenatchee?
Oh, my go-to.
Yeah, you got to go to in Wenatchee?
Pybus Bistro.
Okay.
My favorite. Yeah. So good. Okay. We go there for brunch all the time. Yeah.
Well, you did.
When I used to live. Yeah. When I lived in Wenatchee pre-COVID. Yeah.
Pre-COVID. Right. But they're open as of now. They're
I believe so. And I know that they're doing like family meals, like takeout dinners, which are so good. We've done a couple of different times. Really good. Okay. Yeah.
Then what other, Leavenworth is so well documented.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's famous in October. It's
for
famous
some
at Christmas,
reason. Yeah.
But what else is in that area that if I were just driving over, say I lived in Seattle and I was coming over to Leavenworth for, one of those major events.
Yeah.
I wouldn't probably stumble across naturally. What else is in the Leavenworth area that's like worth checking out?
Oh man. Yeah, this is hard because it is so well documented. But I would say, honestly, one of my favorite things to do up here is just go for a drive on the weekend. And if you head out past Sleeping Lady, up the Icicle, it's just incredible, especially in the spring and early summer. Going for a drive, getting out of town. I think a lot of people stay on Front Street and they don't get off of Front Street, which is so unfortunate because there's so many amazing things to do in Leavenworth. Like if you're coming over from Seattle, hit up Icicle Ridge Trail, head out to Sleeping Lady. Just kind of get out of town because we live in one of the most beautiful spots in the state. So
yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to recommend McDonald's or Starbucks.
Nope.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So what else? So you've got retail?
Yes.
You've got wholesale?
Yes.
Wholesale's probably too deep of a conversation to have. Like, where can they find you? But in the retail channels, if somebody wanted to take a look at what you're doing, where can they find you? And share that. Yeah,
so my website is heirloomapparel.co. That's co like company. And you can find me on Instagram at heirloom.apparel. So those are good places to start shopping with me. And then I actually have a list of some of my stockists who carry things, and those are organized by state on my website. So you can check that out if you're interested in finding something that's local to you and supporting those boutiques in your area. There's some really great spots that are carrying heirloom. So yeah, and I don't even know if it's fully updated. I've added a few shops just in the last week. So that's growing all the time.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to that right now. Yeah, it is quite the list.
Yes. Yeah, we're now in BC, Alberta, Wyoming, Arizona, Oregon, Idaho, Washington.
Wyoming is not on your list.
That's a newer one.
Yeah, Wyoming.
Even in New Hampshire Washington now.
No, nothing on New Hampshire either.
I better update that list.
All you've got at the time of this recording is just Washington, Oregon, California, and Canada.
Nice. Okay, we're going to need to update that list.
You've got some work to do.
I do.
You didn't know there'd be homework after this episode. Sorry.
Homework on a Saturday.
Yeah, homework. Yeah, on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put links to your website and your Instagram. Do you use any other social channels? Are you on anything else?
Facebook and Pinterest. I don't post to Pinterest as much as I like, but it's definitely a source of inspiration for me. So I spend time over there. And Facebook, you're always on the fence about Facebook, but it is a good spot to post some art. But Instagram is really where you'll find me. And I try to post new art pretty much every couple of days. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much for jumping on with us here today. I like what you're doing as far as art goes. And I think, I think there's more to that later. But,
yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Yeah. See, it wasn't painful, was it? I mean, not too painful.
No. I love talking to people. So this is great. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being here, and we appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, you're welcome. See you later.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.